You don't look completely exhausted. Enlivened, maybe. So, final session of questions and answers. We had a really nice discussion over this midday today with a group from the Minnesota group, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Mankato group. You led the way. So anything you'd like to discuss? Questions, application, philosophical discussion. You have more questions you want to ask? You could start us off. Yeah. Well, I was looking at either one. You both have really good questions. You can. Okay.
Pranam Maharaj, my name is Apurva. Thank you for sharing this time with us, for us to know more about this. I'm curious, the nomenclature of the mantra uses the names of two male gods from the Indian epics, which are of religious importance to practicing Hindus and those who identify.
Speak slowly.
So, the nomenclature of the mantra, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna.
The nomenclature.
Yeah, I mean the usage of the words.
Okay.
Uses the names of two gods, Rama and Krishna.
Okay.
From the Hindu mythology. And they are male gods particularly. So, I wanted to ask, is there a reason why the female gods don't feature in the mantra? Or
why there's no female gods?
No, why they don't feature in the mantra?
Why there's no what in the mantra?
The names of female gods.
No, okay. You want equal time, right? Well, you want some good news?
Yes. Always.
Okay, I thought so. I answer your question directly, and then I'll go back and, the frame of your question, I'd like to poke some holes in it, if that's okay. Okay. Have you been to Brindavan?
Yes.
And when you hear the people in Brindavan calling out, what do they call out? Radhe, Radhe. So, Radhe is the vocative of Radha. When you're calling Radha, you say Radhe. So in the mantra, equal is Hare. Hare is the vocative of Hara. Hara is the female aspect, the energy aspect, and then the energetic. So, equal time. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare, Hare, because we're calling her.
So, if I understand this correctly, Hare means Radha?
Hare is the vocative of Hara, and that is another name of Radha, is Hara. Vocative becomes?
Hare.
Hare.
Thank you. I wasn't aware that Radha has another name called Hara.
Really? Others besides you ask? That's your question, or others had the question?
That was my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, can I go back and poke holes in the
Yes.
frame? So, in the dictionary, wrongly stated, Krishna is a Hindu god. So, where there's gold, do we say Christian gold, Muslim gold, Buddhist gold, and Hindu gold? Gold is gold. So, Krishna is not a Hindu god. Second hole. Hindu is an Arabic term. There's no such word in the Vedas. When they crossed the river Sindhu to invade into India, in their language the S becomes an H, so it means everybody on the other side of that river. That's the Hindus. There's no such word. But it's degenerated over time to mean anybody in India. So it's during a certain period of time, people in that part of the other side of the Sindhu River, they were following the Vedic culture or the Vedic texts. Now it's multiple, but it's an inappropriate term, and it's not just, look it up in any literature, and it's an inappropriate nomenclature. So, those who follow the Vedas, are they practicing Hinduism? No, they're Vedic followers, or Sanatana Dharma followers. It's just, language is important. You're educated people, so you know that language is important. So, and then the word mythology. Well, that's a British term that came as a result of the British in 1832. From the British Parliament, one of the House of Lords, named Lord Macaulay, was requested to go to India and see what can be done to make India part of the British Commonwealth. He reported back to the Parliament, the only way to be successful is to destroy the culture of India because it's too strong. But if we can destroy the culture, if they can be indoctrinated to accept that everything Indian is garbage, their teachings are mythology, give it a bad name, and then everything British is good, then we can rule. So that was their policy. And so one of the things that Gandhi did is boycott the British. Don't send your people to their educational institutions. Don't buy their products. Boycott the British, etc., etc. Because that was the very methodology that they used to take over. So that name that's now common is mythology, or Indian mythology, or Indology. In Moscow University, it still exists. There's a department of Indology, Indian mythology. So, as a follower of the Vedas, I take exception to, according to the mythology of India. It's like, Alice in Wonderland is mythology. or Harry Potter. You know, it's mythology, modern mythology. It's just fiction. And people, you know, go buy Harry Potter books because she's a good author. And it's very interesting. But it's not mythology. My spine bristles a little bit.
But do Krishna and Rama find an expression in the Vedas? Because I was taught that they were a part of the two epics, Mahabharata and Ramayana.
They are a part of Mahabharata and Ramayana, and it's not mythology. What was there? A battle of Kurukshetra. And on that battle of Kurukshetra, on the battlefield, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita. Was there a real Krishna and a real Arjuna and a real battle, and Krishna really spoke Bhagavad Gita? Is it mythology? Is it symbolism that means this means that? Or is it a real event? And it was really spoken. It's not mythology. No, it's been taught as mythology. It's not mythology. It's part of the Purana and Itihasa section of the Vedas. Now, for everybody in the room, what does that mean? But for you it means something, probably. I could give the history, which would be probably boring to most of the people in the room. So maybe separately we can discuss. But you might want to take a look at a small book called Tattva Sandarbha by Jiva Goswami that lays out how the Puranas and Itihasas are as Vedic as the four Vedas, without all the detail. So it's not just a technical point, it's a factual point. And, you know, I'll be honest, it's a little personal. Your father's a myth. Excuse me, my father's not a myth.
Thank you. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. And in my head, myth doesn't reduce its relevance, but that's just...
I knew what you were referring to because it's common, and I don't take it as personal in that sense, because you're just using the vernacular of what's out there in the world, the Hindu mythology. So I'm not taking exception with you. I'm taking exception with the scholars that fed, this generation and a few generations prior with that misinformation or poison. You have no father. Anyway.
Thank you.
I hope you don't mind my responding that way.
No, not at all. Thank you.
Okay. I'm starting to feel comfortable with your group, so I can be a little more relaxed here. Say things carefully. Yeah.
Hello. A few days back, I was having a discussion with my friend about Bhagavad Gita. We kind of got into a debate. I was telling her all the benefits and good things that are there in Gita because I was reading it. And in that debate, she asked one question that I wasn't able to answer. The question was, if Bhagavad Gita says that it is the highest scripture,
It is the highest what?
highest book or scripture.
No, is it the highest book or scripture? No. The Bhagavad Gita doesn't say that, and I wouldn't say that either. But keep going.
But it's written that God says that Vedas are there, but you should read Gita because it is above all the Vedas.
No, it didn't say that in Bhagavad Gita. I'm very familiar with Bhagavad Gita. And it doesn't say that in Bhagavad Gita. Or, I invite you, please show me where it says that in Bhagavad Gita. Because I'm not familiar with it. Although, I could say it more strongly, and it doesn't say that in Bhagavad Gita. So how do you answer, the question that the premise is false?
Well,
Here's what, Matak parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. It says that, which means there's no truth superior to me. Truth, tattva. So, reality with a capital R. He's the absolute truth. There's no cause. For everything there's a cause. My father has a father, has a father, has a father, and he's the original father. There's no truth superior to me. The truth in the Vedic sense of that from which everything comes. Absolute truth. It says that. But it doesn't say what you said it says, or your friend said it says.
Thank you.
And I'll say, isn't it, the message of Bhagavad Gita is introductory. Well, Prabhupada says it like this. It's the undergraduate study. And then there's the graduate study, and then there's the postgraduate study. So, in undergraduate study, 2 plus 2 is 4. And in graduate study, 2 plus 2 is 4. And the postgraduate study, 2 plus 2 is 4. Truths don't change. But how you apply the 2 plus 2 is a little more sophisticated and requires a little more training for the graduate study, and then postgraduate study. The truths in Bhagavad Gita don't evolve or morph or become something else in the. But there are scriptures that are far more detailed on the truths of Bhagavad Gita, like Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's against the idea that Bhagavad Gita is the highest scripture. It's the undergraduate study of truth.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, prasadam, right? I've been reading and it says that prasadam is a sacrifice.
Yeah.
So,
How was it? Pretty good?
oh yeah, delicious.
Good.
So I wanted to know, how is that a sacrifice? How
Has it become special?
Yeah, how does it become a sacrifice?
Fantastic question. You can ask all the rest of the questions you like. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 3 and chapter 5, you'll find the principle of yajna, Y-A-J-N-A, yajna, or sacrifice. And sacrifice means to take that which is here in this temporary realm and offer as a sacrifice unto the source of this, with temporary, the source, unto the source. The absolute truth unto Krishna, offer unto Krishna. So by that act of sacrifice, it becomes sacred, becomes spiritualized by the act of sacrifice. And the act of sacrifice isn't whimsical, there's procedure and there's things that can be offered in sacrifice and things that you can't offer in sacrifice. Like, for example, the product of violence. It's not something that you can offer and sacrifice and yet have it be accepted. Or things that are in ignorance and passion are not to be offered. Things that are in goodness are to be offered. So when those items that are in the quality of goodness are offered, by that act of offering, Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam. I don't mind saying the Sanskrit. It's in Bhagavad Gita. And Brahma, that means spirit, the realm of spirit. And things that are offered in sacrifice to that realm of spirit, or Brahman, the object being offered, the person making the offering, the atmosphere becomes spiritualized.
So the offering is the sacrifice?
But the art, whatever that article that you've offered is, it becomes spiritualized, or it becomes the material quality becomes spiritualized. The example given during our meal this afternoon, an iron rod put in fire, eventually, with hot enough fire, becomes fire-like. Take it out of the fire, touch it to dry leaves or grass, and it ignites the fire. It's fire. Although it's an iron rod, it becomes fireized. So in the same way, when it becomes spiritualized, that which is of this realm becomes spiritualized. It acts in a spiritual, but the contact is a spiritual contact. It acts like spirit, although its ingredients previously were material or temporary. They act as if spiritual by the act of sacrifice, offering unto the Supreme. And then not only the article, but the person making the offering in the place. The whole atmosphere becomes spiritualized.
Thank you.
Ooh, this is good group questions.
Namaskar, Maharaj. I'm just wondering, is our life or future already
Destiny? This is
destiny? Yeah. Yes, there's now a big business going on. People are willing to know their future.
We really don't have any free will. It's mythology.
So yeah, I'm just wondering.
We have free will. So karma doesn't mean your free will is taken away. Our destiny is created by us. That is, back there somewhere, we made some free will choices. The free will choices resulted in some action. The action is now coming to us in the form of a reaction. That much, the reaction is destined. How we choose to interact with that reaction, that's a free will choice, a new free will choice. We went over this, a little bit. Now I'm doing a little slow motion. But this saying yes, like acceptance, circumstances are coming, I'm going down the path of life, and here comes an unexpected circumstance. It could be good fortune, it could be ill fortune, but here comes this circumstance. I created that. And it's just like, it's going to rain. So I brought my umbrella. Good fortune, ill fortune may come our way by our past free will choices, thus karma is coming my way. That's destined. Situations will come in our life. Here comes some good fortune. Here comes some ill fortune. Free will isn't taken from you, ever. Did I seem to recall I spoke about Viktor Frankl from the Man's Search for Meaning. Were you here for that? Were you here for that? So you remember the discussion? It's a really good example. He doesn't refer to Bhagavad Gita, but he's saying a Bhagavad Gita principle, which is this principle of destiny. Here I am in a Nazi concentration camp, and I'm a Jewish man. And every day, the guards would come by purposefully and rattle the chain on the outside of that little corrugated tin box that was their home, and signaling, now is the time for some of you to be taken away to the gas chamber. And then some people, the lock would open, they could hear the chain move, and they'd scream, and they'd drag them off to the gas chamber, and they'd gas them. What a horrible... And every day at a certain time. So he couldn't change that circumstance. The war ended and the circumstance was over, but he couldn't personally change the circumstance. He was in a concentration camp. Horrible. In his book, he says, man needs not to change the circumstances of misfortune in the life at any cost. Rather, the freedom, one freedom that can never be taken from one, is the freedom to choose how you're going to respond to that circumstance. So, circumstance may be destined, it's going to rain, or it's forecast it's going to rain. So you're not going to change that circumstance. The weather isn't going to change because you want it to. So, but you can choose how you're going to respond. Wear a jacket, bring an umbrella, don't care. You can choose, so that's not destined. And that free will choice that you're making moment to moment, that's creating your future. 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Sad asad yoni janmaso. We're creating our own good fortune, ill fortune by our free will choices. And then when it comes, we can respond however we choose. That's a freedom we have. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, alright, to kind of recall to my question is, you just said, to not use this word, but Hinduism. I'm very not educated on, so this is a great experience for me to learn more about it, but in what I know of some readings from the Bible and Christianity, it talks very specifically, I would say, its messages kind of are, so I don't know if like the readings of this are going to be specific, but in Christianity, one of the messages is in regards to relationships on earth between like male and female are only in things of that nature, should only be done like sexually for procreation, to reproduce and populate on the earth. Otherwise it is lustful and a sin. And I was wondering if any of the readings talk about interpersonal relationships between man or woman on earth. I'm curious about that, what it has to say in regards to procreation, lust, because it's such a big part of human nature to have these interpersonal relationships. I think it's a challenge, at least for myself personally, to kind of grasp like a morality on of right and wrong.
Okay.
And I'm just curious what you have to say on that.
Well, I'm glad you picked a light topic. It's easy to say a lot and and not have it satisfying. It's easy to say something short and have it not satisfying. I think I'd rather say something short and have it not satisfying. But, you know, the position is everything that exists comes from one source. That's the absolute truth. Whatever that is, that's the... So, and within not just human form, within all species, you know, octopuses, and there's the male and the female. And so it's built in that there is male-female attraction. There is this, and the purpose is reproduction of the species. It's a God-given purpose. So, according to Bhagavad Gita, when the act of sex is not, the language is dharma, not contrary to religious principles, I am that act, which is the procreative act. And so the simple response is very close to what you said. That when we use something for its God-given purpose, that's sacrifice. And when we use something otherwise, that is, yehi samsparsha ja bhoga. I'm using Sanskrit terms now, I think it's okay, because it's a smaller group. It's samsparsha ja means the senses contacting the sense objects for gratification of the senses. For that purpose only, that's binding one to the law of karma. And karma-free activity is where I engage the senses with objects of the senses for the God-given purpose of the senses and that object being interacting. So I'm satisfying the senses of the Supreme. When I'm doing that, it's karma-free. It's sacred. And not doing that, it's bondage to the law of karma. No, it's a God-given propensity. So what do I do with this God-given propensity? There's eating, these four: eating, mating, sleeping, defending. So the teaching doesn't say, don't eat. It says if you eat, it's right in Bhagavad Gita, if you eat foods that are not with this act of sacrifice, then you're inviting karma. And if you eat, connecting that eating process with the act of sacrifice, then you're sanctifying and spiritualizing the body. And same with the act of sex. For that God-given purpose of generation of the species, that's sacred. It's spiritual. It's worshipable. And otherwise it invites bondage to the laws of karma and repeated birth and death. And it can be higher or lower depending upon the consciousness behind the activity. So, that's maybe the unpleasant answer.
Can I interrupt you? Because I'm just confused on one thing you're saying.
What's
when
that?
you say the karma can either be higher or lower, what does that mean? Is karma only a bad term? Because you
No, there's good karma.
So what do you mean by higher or lower?
Oh, there's consciousness. And so there's, in the structure of the universe, there's places of, I did it before, but there's places of higher consciousness. The Earth planet is in the middle planetary region, and it's in the middle region of consciousness, often passion. Above higher planetary regions, heaven and above heaven, is higher consciousness or more in the mode of goodness, and then lower planetary region conventionally known as hell, or hellish planets, or Patala Loka, Rasatala Loka, etc. There's planets where consciousness is lower. So depending upon the consciousness, and consciousness indicates, the purpose to be derived from an activity. And how much of that consciousness is recognizing, a higher purpose for the activity. Anyway, so that's a differentiation of higher and lower. The Bhagavad Gita advocates, don't go for good karma. Go for beyond karma. Because even in the realms where there's higher consciousness, there's a body to receive that good karma, and there's birth and death. So the advocacy of Bhagavad Gita is, don't just go for higher consciousness per se, but go for transcendence. Connect with that transcendental realm. I don't know if that's satisfying your question, though.
Yes, thank you.
So she's got the microphone. I want to see if she's satisfied. I'm not expecting you're going to be satisfied, but I'm trying to be honest with the answer I'm giving you.
Well, in asking the question, I wasn't necessarily looking for satisfaction, more so understanding, because like I said, this is like a topic that so many different people could have opinions on. And
it's a hot topic for sure.
And then the different religions have their own say on it. And since I know, like before this weekend, very minimal, just questions that go through my mind, I think it's good to gather, like while I'm here, information that I think is like, just beneficial to know. And
you want to explore it further? Because I'm ready for the hot topic.
Yes, but I'm sure there's other questions, and also I kind of almost have a hard time paraphrasing my own question on it.
Okay.
If I just like simplify it, it would honestly be, is sex without means for procreation considered wrong?
No, it's not wrong. It's not wrong. It's involvement in karma. And there's higher karma and there's lower karma. But it involves one in the complexities of the laws of karma. Actions which are performed not for the God-given purpose. Now, so what's, how do you know what the God-given purpose is? Well, anyway, there's a God-given purpose. There's an attraction that invites, production of offspring. So there's Vedic regulation going into peacocks. Anyway, there's ideal time during a woman's menstrual cycle when procreation is most likely, and then other times that wane and less likely and not likely. So in those who are very careful followers of the Vedas, they know what point in time during a woman's menstrual cycle is ideal for procreation, and then that's the chosen time. And prior to that act of procreation, there's a procedure it's called Garbhadan Sanskar. For those of you from India, you know what that is. It's a purificatory process that one involves oneself to purify one's consciousness, male and female, so that a elevated soul is attracted to take shelter. And those with elevated consciousness can then nurture that soul's journey beyond the cycle of birth and death. So it's beyond procreation. It's to take that dependent that you've invited into your family now beyond the cycle of birth and death. The Vedas say, the Bhagavatam says, one should not become a mother and father unless you're prepared and qualified to take the soul that you've invited beyond the cycle of birth and death. Pita nasishat. So there's more than procreation for elevated consciousness people. We, father, mother, or male, female, we have this opportunity to invite a soul to complete their journey beyond the cycle of birth and death. That's what the higher consciousness people do, according to the Vedas. And otherwise, the rest of the journey of our life together is to assist one another in achieving that higher purpose of life. We live together, and our senses are meant for satisfying the master of the senses. That's our life. We do so in a sacred marriage situation. And go away from that, and it's not bad exactly, it's karmic. And it leads to bondage, and it doesn't necessarily lead to higher, it can certainly lead to lower forms of life. If I live that way, then I'm not fulfilling the mission of human life, according to the Vedic picture. So I can my next body will be according to my karma. I'm determining my future now. That's this destiny question. That's the Vedic picture. It's not a modern picture. Modern picture is, if it feels good, you do it. Now that was when I was in college, now it's just do it. And the Vedic picture is, there's a mission of human life. We're awarded after 8,400,000 is the number given in the Puranas of how many species of life. When we come to this human form of life, the lower forms of life, lower means, from aquatics to plants to insects to birds to beasts. The evolutionary picture is in Padma Purana. It gives the number of species. And then the human form. The human form, according to the Padma Purana, is 400,000 species. And in this human form of life, there's freedom and there's responsibility, because with freedom comes responsibility. With privileges comes responsibility. I drive a car. I've got a responsibility. So, from the human form of life, we can go, not as evolution takes it, I'm making choices because I have freedom. I can go to a higher place. I can stay again in the middle planetary region. I can go down. Or I can go beyond the cycle of birth and death. The other life forms don't have that evolved consciousness. They don't have the freedoms of choices that the human form of life does. It's a life of responsibility. It's a life of privilege. Comes responsibility. And so the Vedas are instructing persons that want to fulfill the human mission. Here are some guidelines of how to fulfill the human mission. So it's not like you're condemned if you don't follow the Vedic, guidelines. But you're involving yourself in karma, and the fire burns. I didn't know the law of fire burns. A child touches fire and it burns. It doesn't say, oh, well, he's just a little boy, he doesn't know. A little girl, they didn't know, so I won't burn them. The laws of nature are acting. Laws of karma are acting on all of us, myself included. And the exception is if this opportunity to connect with that which is making this place sacred, I understand it, abide by it, live in harmony with it, and I can feel the difference of living a life that's in harmony with that sacred principle, or principle of making the temporary connected to the eternal. The act of sacrifice, back to this other question about food. Okay, someone else.
Thank you.
Hi, to make that question more complicated, I really wonder whether the Vedic text says something about same-sex love.
About?
Same-sex love.
No, it doesn't.
So how is this interpreted? And
I'm glad you're picking a non-controversial topic.
how is this related to karma in these contexts of two females loving each other or two males loving each other?
Well, you know, how we're wired, how does it happen? There's nothing in the Vedic text that speaks about it that I'm aware of. There is a description in Mahabharata. Are you familiar with Mahabharata? Have you heard of it?
I mean, I've heard it, I'm not.
Okay. It's a history, and in that Mahabharata, you know who Arjuna is, because he receives Bhagavad Gita. There's Krishna speaking and Arjuna who's hearing. Arjuna, in Mahabharata, there was a period of time where the Arjuna and his 4 brothers, there were 5 of them, they were in exile for some years. And in the final year of that exile, they were hiding out with a king. And Arjuna was taking the role of the way that is translated as a eunuch. You know, like a gay man. And he was a dance teacher. He was a warrior. Big arms, showed powerful dance teacher, eunuch. So it wasn't unknown that there were people who were wired that way. They weren't, it comes back to this same question. If supposing I'm wired this way, what do I do? So it depends if from the Vedic point of view, there's a God-given purpose of everything. And if I'm hardwired this way, and therefore there's an attraction that's not male-female attraction, it's male-male or female-female attraction. What do? The Veda, I'm unaware of the Vedas saying anything, what do? Or don't do. But there's a God-given purpose for everything, and if that God-given purpose is fulfilled, then you do. And otherwise, you control your mind and senses. So, it's a hot topic. Not just anywhere you go, it's a hot topic. So, there are members of the practitioners of Bhakti Yoga who are wired that way, or who have that nature. And so, she is living with her, and he is living with him, but they don't indulge themselves. This is ones that I know. They're not what they call themselves, active. Is that indulging themselves. There's an attraction, and then they abide by a standard where they don't indulge themselves, because they want that companionship. And they prefer that companionship. Now, there are persons that don't abide by that standard. They indulge themselves. And then that results in karma. They're responsible for the reaction of that action. Not, going back to the previous question. Bad. It's karmic bondage, and that depends on the ranges of indulgence and the ranges of consciousness behind that act. But let's take somebody else. That's another principle. That supposing somebody, supposing somebody has an alcohol problem. They grew up anyway. Eating some foods that they're not in the mode of goodness, and they kind of habituated to that. And it's hard for them to not continue with that habit. It's not that they're a bad person, and they can't be accepted by Krishna or Krishna's devotees. They're in a mixed position. And to the degree that they're indulging themselves in some eating habit that's not in the mode of goodness, that they have karmic bondage for that. There's a really nice text I like. It's from Krishna's instruction to Uddhava, 11th canto Bhagavatam, where someone that's in that situation and they have this habit or addiction or tendency, a weakness, and they understand that it's a weakness. And they don't resent the higher standard that they're unable to fulfill. And so they accept their position, because this is my position, this position of indulgence is my position. And I regret it, but I'm being honest, it's my position. So they accept that there's going to be some reaction, and they're aspiring to come to a stage where that higher consciousness is something that gives them the strength to go beyond that weakness. The weakness, so using the word weakness, that's not exactly the word that's in the Bhagavatam, but this is not leading me to higher consciousness. It's leading me to indulgence and gratification of the senses that leads downwards, doesn't lead upwards. Delicate. Others, yes. Way over. She's been very patient. The one that I can't see because she hides her head behind everybody else's heads.
So I have two questions. The first is, so during the retreat this weekend, we talked about the importance of yoga, the importance of meditation, and the importance of Ayurveda when it comes to eating and like cooking meals and eating it afterwards. And anyway, that's to say that there's a lot to consider when we want to lead wholesome and balanced lives. However, that's easy to do in a space like this when there aren't other concerns. So I guess my question is what is your advice on being able to do all of that and miss all of the other priorities that we have when we get back to the real world? So that's my first question, and then my second question is, I'm wondering if you have suggestions on how to approach the Bhagavad Gita for someone who doesn't have exposure to it. Thank you.
Very practical, both questions. The first question I think of it as lifestyle. And, a whole waft of things when you go back, you've got, responsibilities and routines and what your life is made up of. It's not realistic to download a bunch of stuff and then where are you going to do all the other stuff. So directionally, incrementally, things that resonate with you the most, you do those things. And do those things that you can do, select those things that you can do regularly. Tomorrow we're going to hear from Patanjali. Yoga, you practice yoga? So Patanjali is the authority in yoga. And he expresses practice includes something you do every day for an extended period of time with the confidence going to take you to a good place. That's yoga. It's an essential part of yoga, of a yoga lifestyle. So do those things that you can do every day. And then as you do them every day, because you're committed to do it, so you do it, then you'll find you have an experience. This is helpful. Then you consider, okay, here's some other things. Now let me see what other things. And so gradually, you can adopt a more yogic lifestyle, a more goodness lifestyle, a more conscious lifestyle. So consciousness evolves, and on top is the behavior. The tip of the iceberg is the behavior. Down below that is values. That values drives the behaviors, not just try to modify behaviors if it's not something that's a value that you hold. So we value health. So we do things that are healthful because that's value. So then there are things that will help and help and help. So it's the yogic, the simple way of saying it, the yogic lifestyle. And then beyond the yogic, Ayurvedic doctor that I visit, he was building someone really liked his work. They gave him a substantial donation and charity to build an Ayurvedic center. But he was showing me around. It was almost finished. Up here, saying da. Then down, we were at the bottom floor. And said, with the training that I received from my teacher, Ayurvedic teacher, was 140 years old, and passed on all of his literature to him as his successor. That I could take people with bad health and bring them to the position of balance, but if their lifestyle isn't wholesome, they'll be right back to where they were when they go back home. So I can't fix their lifestyle, but you can, according to me. Can you work with our staff so that their lifestyle is commensurate with all the wisdom they have in Ayurvedic healing? And then they can pass that on to the patients, because lifestyle makes all the difference, not just adjusting things. So little by little, I'm an incrementalist. I believe, rampant changes aren't realistic. You can do them for a little while, but they don't endure. So that was just sustainable. You do that, and then find other things from what you've heard that you little by little. That's the elevation of consciousness method that I would recommend. I found it's sustainable. And then having resources that help you sustain it, like a teacher that can guide you, or a mentor, or a village elder, or a wise person in your life, who they're not deciding your life, they're micromanaging your life, but they're guiding your life. That's very helpful. In the Vedic picture, it's essential. One needs a teacher, a guru. And guru isn't the micromanager of your wife or your life. It's guiding you step by step by step on the path to wellness in all senses of the term. And recommendation for study of Bhagavad Gita. Ideal is that there's many systems available for online study. If there isn't somebody, where do you go to school?
I don't go to school.
You don't go to school.
I'm a lifelong learner.
Okay. Well, wherever you live, what city do you live in?
New York.
New York. So there are people in New York that can help guide you with Bhagavad Gita study. So, you go to the Bhakti Center, and I'm sure there's some people at the Bhakti Center who attend the classes and find someone who you can resonate with and learn about, or there's, multiple facilities for people that are guiding the study of Bhagavad Gita. So it's ideal to have a relationship with the teacher, and you can bring questions, not just bring questions, but their character gets passed on through the transmission of the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So someone who you resonate with in that way, that's ideal. 26 Second Avenue, they have a Bhagavad Gita study thing that happens once a week, every Saturday evening. You aware of that?
26 Second Avenue.
In Manhattan, New York City.
Yes.
26 Second Avenue. It's a storefront where Prabhupada started everything. So it can have a lease on that space. It's a storefront. Ground floor. 26, just above Houston.
Yes.
26 Second Avenue. Saturday evening, 5 o'clock. Bhagavad Gita study. The place is the starting place.
Thank you.
Okay. Right here? Okay. Then,
So does your previous karma have an influence on the choices that you currently make in life?
we're responsible for the choices we make, yes.
So your past karma has no influence on the choices that...
Your past karma is a byproduct of your past choices. Today, prarabdha karma is what's happening now. That what's happening now is a byproduct of the consequence of choices that I made, and then I acted, and now there's a reaction coming. That's and it can be good. It can be bad, it can be mixed. But that's what it is. It's the fruit of my past choices and past actions.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Anybody can share.
Hello, Anna. So my question is, at the end of each yuga, Krishna or reincarnation comes down to provide his religion. And as you know, we're part of Krishna. Why does he make it so difficult for one to understand religion if that's what is key?
Well, for those that are not familiar with Bhagavad Gita, there's a text in Bhagavad Gita that says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. From time to time, yuge, from age to age, when there's discrepancy in this acting towards higher consciousness, I come and I set the record straight. I set by example, here's how you do it. So, his question is, if he does this and he has this concern, why is it hard? And he doesn't make it hard. We're making choices. Supposing I make choice. Supposing I'm the kind of person that when somebody says something mean, I get angry. And I let them have it. I'm not a pacifist. I show my teeth and claws. I'm that kind of person. That's a choice. Krishna is not making it hard for me. I'm making it hard for myself. Because I'm, behaving like an animal instead of like a human. Now, humans can also say something, do something, but it's commensurate to consciousness. It can be higher or lower. It's my choices. And in this present cycle of age of mankind, it's so easy. Even a child can do it. Even an unfortunate person can do it. Even an uneducated person, illiterate person, impoverished person, anyone can do it. There is a factor of free will choice of saying yes.
So you're saying he's testing us?
Huh?
So you're saying he's testing us?
Well, mantra, calling these sound vibrations that are sacred sound vibrations. Looking around the room to see if there's some plants. So, supposing there's a plant, the plant doesn't doing anything, but just hearing that sound vibration, the soul that's occupying the body of that plant is getting spiritual benefit just by hearing that sound. And we have the free will choice of making the sound, and making the sound more consciously than just making the sound. So the more we're making the conscious choice, the more we're benefiting, and all of the living entities that hear that sound are benefiting, and the whole atmosphere becomes also spiritualized, same as this principle of sacrifice that we've spoken about earlier. So, anyway, the most unfortunate person, most degraded person, the most, whatever it is, most of whatever that's, thing is, they're eligible just through sound. And to give benefit to the world and to all types of people, all types of entities is sound.
Yes, thank you, Lord.
Uh-huh.
I'll be quick, and I'll do it fine. I'm a new, I started recently looking into Vedic scripture and reading Bhagavad Gita and different studies. And the thing that is hard for me sometimes is putting all the name of the gods like Vishnu, Shiva, Krishna, like in a context, like in a time frame. Like I cannot understand still how they relate to another and what is different in this movement. Why Krishna is more important, or is Shiva, or how, so like a brief kind of introduction to that, to understand like also in historical how they relate, like, makes sense.
Well, I don't know of how much interest your question is to everybody. I can say something, we can speak more later. There's one source of everything. There's not multiple sources of everything. And that one source of everything, according to Vedic text, is Para Brahman. And the category of Para Brahman is the Supreme Person. So Vishnu, Tattva means truth or reality or knowledge. That's a category. And there are expansions by different names. The original source according to Srimad Bhagavatam, that original source is Krishna. And there are expansions of Krishna in the same category. And there's names that are confusing, but once you're familiar, it's a category. And then there's expansions that are not complete. Shiva is one of them. Shiva is compared to, in one text, Vedic text, is like milk in contact with a souring agent, lemon or tamarind or something, and it becomes dahi or yogurt. Yogurt is nothing but a milk product, but it's not milk. And Shiva is compared to yogurt. That is, from milk in contact with something, and then it becomes yogurt. That's Lord Shiva's position. Not Krishna in full. He's not the origin of everyone and everything. He's an emanation from, an expansion of, but not the source. And then there's others that are tiny souls, you and me. Some are more powerful. Those are the controllers of the universe. In the English language, is demigods, like little gods. They're in control of this and that. They're the departments that govern the light and the sun and everything that makes the universe run. Water, wind. They're in charge of those things. They're powerful persons in charge of those things. They're like us, but they've just invested with some power to look after something in the universe. Very qualified in consciousness, in other qualifications. So, within the Vedic text that describes all those 33 million, that's a lot, of controlling personalities within the universe. And some persons petition this one because they want health, they want wealth, they want this, they want that, and so there's a procedure for honoring those persons to get what you want. Because there's some needs, or at least a want. But the power, in Bhagavad Gita says, the power of those persons to deliver what you want comes from the source of everything. And so, therefore, Bhagavad Gita is advocating, go to the source of everything. So now back to the nomenclature. What's the source of everything? Vishnu Tattva, the category, is Krishna, Rama, Krishna, etc., etc., etc. Different features of that source of everything, who expands himself very mercifully in different ways at different times, according to time, place, circumstance, and need. But it's the same tattva, making available, accessible to people of this world according to time, place, circumstance. But the touch of it to be recognized. And according to what we find, and that which is the source of all of those expansions is Krishna. He says in Bhagavad Gita, and it says in Bhagavatam, therefore emphasis on Krishna, because that's what the Vedic texts say, is the source of everything is Krishna.
Maharaj, I don't know whether we have time. I have a quick question. Bro, do we have time? I have a quick question.
Asking me?
Yes, yes.
I have all this thing.
No, Maharaj. So, my quick question is like human body, like it is a conditioned body, like we start with birth, adulthood, and old age, then we die.
Okay.
So, what about the soul?
What about it?
The soul,
What do you want to know about it?
like, what is the
It
nature?
doesn't change.
It doesn't change, like, for
Chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, it doesn't change. It doesn't come into being, doesn't go out of being. It's unchanging.
So, like, is there like, just in a layman term, like an expiration date, or like it's like
No.
birth and death?
Over that way in time and over that way in time. It doesn't come into being, it doesn't go out of being. It's eternal. Literally.
So,
For the soul, there's no beginning.
so that means like when, like as we talk about, like when parents they do a Garbhoda
Yeah.
process,
Yeah.
then they ask for they can get an elevated soul.
Yes.
So like, does that depend, like when soul comes, so whatever circumstances that we present to it, like that soul gets the hit for it, like it carries that baggage and continue.
Oh, that soul is going to make choices too. It's not just what you give. Like my mother and father, as much as I'm grateful to them for so many things, they gave me a clue of a higher reality, but they couldn't share with me what that higher reality was. I don't fault them, but my consciousness connected with some source that gave that understanding more clearly and a path to reach it. So my mother and father helped me to a certain extent, and now I'm continuing, grateful to what they gave me and continuing. So it's not just that the child that comes and takes shelter of mother and father, that's it. And the free will choices that individual soul is going to make. Higher, lower, somewhere in between. It's a mix.
So soul also has a consciousness?
Of course.
Okay.
Free will. It's of the soul. Freedom to choose. Free will. Because we're part and parcel of the Supreme. A particle of gold from a gold mine has the same quality of the gold in the gold mine. We're tiny parts of the Supreme. So we are qualitatively like the unlimited free will, tiny free will. It's of the soul. And we're making choices. Every moment we're making choices. Including asking the short.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, it's 8:35. We're going to wind up. You want to do some wind up? Like tell us tomorrow?